Well, good morning. Kind of a tough morning for a lot of folks. Some of us are lucky to be where they got roads cleared, and other people aren't quite so lucky. And if you got your road cleared, you still had to do your driveway somehow or another. I never saw anything like that, trying to clear my driveway. I've got a little Kubota tractor, and I couldn't even scratch it. I've never seen it like that. I'm kind of used to the snow. I lived in about 75 miles southwest of Chicago for 30-some years, and we saw all kinds of snow, but I never saw this concrete before. Yeah, I'd had the tires picked up off, and it was just riding over the top of it. I took 2 days to clear a thing that was not as big as one of these sets of seats. But anyway, we'll pray that we don't see any more of that like that for a while. Anyway, it's good to see everyone. Glad that it takes some effort to get here sometimes more than others, but absolutely glad to see your faces that are here. We're going to get started here in chapter 18 of 1 Samuel. If you remember, we left 1 Samuel after David and Goliath there in where Israel was battling the Philistines, and so we'll pick that up in chapter 18. But before we do that, Keith, would you start us with a prayer, please?
Pray, Father, that Terry brings us the lesson that the meanings and teachings that you would have us to learn, that you put those through Terry's teaching to us, and that we learn more about you and the love that you have for us and the desire to have us with you. Father, we pray that there are many here that you couldn't be here today, that you be with them, and that they're able to come back to us at the next point in time. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. So as just a little bit of review, I'll just state what we've got here is we've got King Saul that is the first king of Israel, and we've got David who will be soon the second king of Israel. And why is it that it's not Jonathan, Saul's son? That's typical for a country, a nation that has a king, that there's an heir there, be the king's oldest son. Why is that not happening? Why is it going to be David instead of Jonathan? Jonathan is Saul's son, firstborn. God's choice. But what did Saul do to disappoint God? Well, he's going to do a lot of stuff to disappoint, but what was the first big one? Who remembers that? Yeah, and who was that? Agag, the king of the Amalekites? Is that right? I think so. He was supposed to kill the whole batch of them, take nothing, destroy it all. And when Samuel came to visit, he says, And Saul stepped out. So I did everything God said to do. Yeah, we're great. He said, well, what is this I'm hearing? He was hearing the lowing of the cattle and the bleating of the sheep. Well, the people made me do it. Saul's a king. He is the authority. Is it? The people made me do it, or somebody else made me do it. And so Samuel delivered God's rejection to him. Back there in chapter 13, said that Saul would not keep the kingdom. 13 and I think it's 13 and 13. Let me get back there just a little bit. 13 and 13. Samuel said to Saul, you have acted foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, for now the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not endure. The Lord has sought out for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has appointed him as ruler over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you. So if Saul had obeyed, Samuel's telling him here, the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But he didn't. So he's telling him now, God sought out for himself a man after his own heart. Yes, sir?
There's a great lesson for us here. When God gives a specific commandment, that's exactly what he wants. He doesn't want us to change it in any direction.
Don't want to add a little to it or make it a little better, or maybe take off something that you don't really like. No. He's pretty specific here, isn't he?
For example, the New Testament says sing and make melody in your heart. And we want to add.
Well, how about drums and a bugle or something? No? That always. Well, maybe I'm picking the wrong instruments, but anyway, that's not what he says, is it? All right. So then, over in chapter 15, there's a 15 and 26 through 28. This is where Samuel is leaving Saul, and Samuel tells Saul there in verse 26, Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. As Samuel turned to go, Saul seized the edge of his robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to your neighbor who is better than you. All right. So Saul has been told, it's not going to be you, it's not going to be your family. So he said, well, okay, I'm good with that. No, not really. He is doing everything in his power to keep that from happening. All right. So then we went to there in chapter 17, where Saul promised that the hero, the person that killed Goliath, or that fought Goliath and won, he'd give him his daughter, he'd give him riches, he'd do all kinds of things for him. And did that happen? Well, of course, David did his part. Did Saul give him his daughter and riches and anything like that? Well, not the first daughter. Okay? That's Michal is later. She's the second daughter. I forget the name of the first daughter, but well, let's just go there and look. All right, so David killed Goliath there in the tail end of chapter 17. And I got to find the 24's got her name in it?
17 through 24, they're in chapter 17.
Well, that's where, and then that gets him in the Okay, you're right. I was looking. I thought, Jim said chapter 17, I thought, and I was in the wrong chapter. So, yeah. I will give her to you as a wife, only be a valiant man for me and fight the Lord's battles. Well, that wasn't the deal to start out with, but David had already fulfilled his obligation, because Saul said he would give him his wife. Now there's a little condition to it. He's changed his mind just a little bit. And why do you think? Why is that attitude starting to slip in there? Why is Saul not really excited about David? Jealous of him. Jealous of why?
The popularity that he had.
There you go. Remember that back there where the people are welcoming the army and the king and David back, and the women there in chapter 18, verse 7. The women sang as they played and said, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." All right. Well, they were celebrating David, and just in that statement, elevating David as being the person that they really thought did a great job. Now, Saul did good, but David did better in their minds. Well, how do you think that sat with the king? He didn't like that much at all, did he, Mike? Yeah, he didn't care for that. So now he's kind of got his eye on David. And we look back there in 18:10. It came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God came mightily upon Saul. Or some translations would say a harmful spirit. And we talked about that some last time. God didn't make a pact with a demon. What he's done is it's more like a depression, guilt, frustration, anger that Saul is feeling. Said he raved in the midst of the house while David was playing the harp with his hand. And as usual, and a spear was in Saul's hand, and he hurled the spear. For he thought, I will pin David to the wall. But David escaped from him twice. So Saul is angry. He's just not happy. He's already gotten this message from Samuel. So God's not going to. You're not going to be king. He's going to tear the kingdom away from you. And so he's delivered that message a couple of times. But Saul is doing his best to not let that happen. So when he promised his daughter that, and then, well, let's go back up to 18:18. David said to Saul, "Who am I, and what is my life or my father's family in Israel that I should be the king's son-in-law?" Basically, he's, what do I do? I don't deserve that. So it came about at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to another man. All right, and it tells you who it is. It doesn't matter. For a wife. All right, so he backtracked on that obligation, or that promise. Now, there, starting in verse 20, Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And I believe the way that would have been, that was his second oldest daughter back in those days. That's the way the hierarchy was. And so Saul thought, there in verse 21, I'll give her to him, and then she may become a snare to him, that the hands of the Philistines may be against him. So therefore Saul said to David for a second time, you may be my son-in-law today. So he had promised the oldest daughter. He backtracked on that one. He reneged on that promise and changed his mind. Now he's got to thinking, well, the daughter actually loved David. It says so in verse 20. And so he said, man, well, I can make that work. I can set him up with her. And but he's put another condition. What was the second condition?
100 foreskins.
All right, he had to go take a battle to the Philistines and kill 100 of them and bring that evidence. And so Saul planned there in verse 25, planned to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David to become the king's son-in-law. Before the days had expired, David rose up and went, and he and his men struck down 200 men among the Philistines. So David doubled what the king wanted. Now, was Saul really wanting that to happen? No, he was hoping David would get killed by these people. All right, but he didn't. And there in verse 28, when Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him, then Saul became even more afraid of David. Thus Saul was David's enemy continually. So
Selfishness leads to a lot of sins there.
selfishness, jealousy, there's just all kinds of...
I think Saul's feeling went past jealousy.
I don't know what the next step is. Hate? Hatred? Yeah, okay.
I think he did. I think he got all the way to hate.
But we'll see as we go through here that it's kind of a Jekyll-Hyde kind of thing.
But you can be jealous of something or somebody and still not get to that level that Saul got to. I mean, he's trying to kill him.
We tried,
He hates him.
and then he'd have a change of heart and say, I love you, and I won't I'll never touch you, I'll never harm you. But yeah, we're going to talk more about that too. But how did David take all this? What did he do? He did his job. He was, the commanders of the Philistines went out to battle, and it happened as often as they went out that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so his name was highly esteemed. All right, so David became prominent in the army of Israel. He was smart. He had God on his side, and he did very well. Now, back over there, let me go find that. At the end of chapter 17, after Goliath had been killed, and Saul and David talked, and also Jonathan was there. So we can just imagine what that conversation was about. I'm certain it was about the battle and him killing the giant. But Jonathan had listened to that, listened to David speak, listened to the conversation between he and his father, and said the soul of Jonathan. Well, I'll read it. I'll start there in 18:1. Now it came about when he had finished speaking to Saul that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as himself. And Saul kept David there. He didn't let him return to his house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him of himself as himself. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, including his sword, his bow, and his belt. All the accoutrements of a warrior. And accoutrements, that robe would be the heir. The robe that Jonathan would wear would designate him as the heir to the kingdom. He gave that to David. All right? So the two of them were very close. And that's also a theme that continues on through here. And you kind of feel for Jonathan. He tries to do everything right. And he is very much in tune to the honor thy father and thy mother, the commandment, a fifth one, I think. And then, but then he has his friend, that he loves and that he knows is a valiant warrior, and he supports the king. And so he's in a tight spot here between doing honoring his father and doing what his father wants him to do, and honoring David because of his love for David, and he knows David hasn't done anything wrong. But getting there in in chapter 19, after David has that verse I just read a moment ago, that David had done wisely, more wisely than all the servants of Saul, and his name was highly esteemed. Well, the next verse, first verse in chapter 19, now Saul told Jonathan his son and all his servants to put David to death. Once again, he's got his a great valiant man here that's fighting his battles, helping the kingdom, and Saul's so obsessed with this and with his jealousy and his rage and, as Jim points out, his hatred, that he tells them they want to kill him. Jonathan, Saul's son, though, is greatly delighted in David. So Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father is seeking to put you to death. Therefore, please be on guard in the morning and stay in a secret place and hide yourself. All right? So Saul he wants to kill David, and he's told Jonathan and his people to kill him. Jonathan knows that David hasn't done anything wrong, and Jonathan warned David off. And then Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father and said to him, do not let the king sin against his servant David, since he has not sinned against you, and since his deeds have been very beneficial to you. For he took his life in his hand and struck the Philistine. The Lord brought about a great deliverance for all Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood by putting David to death without a cause? So Jonathan makes a good argument to his father, and Saul listened to the voices. In 19:6, Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul vowed, as the Lord lives, he shall not be put to death. There we go. I guess that ends that, doesn't it? No? You don't think so? And Jonathan called David, and Jonathan told him all these words, and Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as formerly. So David went back to Saul. When there was a war again, David went out and fought with the Philistines and defeated them with a great slaughter, so they fled before him. Now there was an evil spirit from the Lord on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, and David was playing his harp for him. And Saul tried to pin David to the wall with a spear, but he slipped out of Saul's presence so that he struck the spear into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. Then Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him. So we went to only just a couple of... I don't know how much time passes here. We don't have a good feeling for that. But we went from verse 6 where Saul says, as the Lord lives, he won't be put to death. And David comes back in, and he puts in, and he's back there like everything's normal. And then David went out to the war again and defeated the Philistines. And then the next sentence, next verse, Saul is now going to try to kill David again. So he sent messengers out. He failed when he was there in his presence, but he sent messengers out to his house, spies. I don't know about messengers, but he sent people out there to watch him in order that he could get his folks there in the morning and kill him. Somehow, Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be put to death. Tomorrow you're going to get killed. So she let David down through a window, and he went out and fled and escaped. So Michal took that household idol. It was something that apparently was significant to the family. They'd kept it. There was no idol worship. Shouldn't be worshiping idols, but they did still have that idol in the household. And she put it in the bed and put goat's hair around it as the head, making it look like David was there asleep. And David fled and escaped. He went to Ramah, where Samuel was, and he told Samuel all about this. But when Saul's men got there, they found this idol and the goat's hair that she had used to fool them. And Saul then there in verse 17 said, "Why have you deceived me like this and let my enemy go so he's escaped?" And Michal said to Saul, "He said to me, 'Let me go. Why should I be? And why should I put you to death?'" So her dad is not happy with the daughter because she helped him escape, and then so we went from he's a great guy to I want to kill him to a great guy to I want to kill him, and this continues. So he went to Ramah. Then there in verse chapter 19, verse 18. And Samuel lived, if you remember, Samuel lived in Ramah. So he met up with Samuel. And then verse 19 says, "Behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah." Naioth is let me see if I've got a little thing about that. So here we go. So Naioth was a community or a compound for prophets. The name likely meaning habitations, dwellings, or house of instruction. All right. So that's where Samuel. The city was not Ramah, but where the place that he was actually at was Naioth, which was this compound or house of instruction, dwelling, something like that. Depends on your translation. And so, but down in 19, it was told to Saul, saying, "Behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah." So somebody saw him, some of Saul's people, and so they went back and told Saul that he was there. Saul then sent messengers to take David, but when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying with Samuel standing and presiding over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. So the Spirit of God entered these people, and they forgot all about their mission to go down and take David. So when he was told about it, Saul sent other messengers. Well, when they got there, the same thing happened. The Spirit of the Lord entered them, and they also prophesied. So Saul sent messengers a third time, and they also prophesied. He's not getting it. So he said, "Well, I'll fix this. I'll go myself." And he said, and then he himself went to Ramah and came as far as the large well that is in Seku. And he asked and said, where are Samuel and David? And someone said, "Well, behold, they're at Naioth in Ramah." So he proceeded there to Naioth, and the Spirit of God came upon him so that he went along prophesying and continually until he came to Naioth in Ramah. So the Spirit of the Lord entered Saul, and he too prophesied. It overwhelmed him. He stripped off his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel and lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore they say, "Is Saul among the prophets?" So God protected him. God protected David. And I don't know what the lesson was there for Saul. You'd think that he would realize that God is not going to let him harm David.
Saul doesn't seem to learn any lessons.
He doesn't, does he?
But a good lesson for us, for David, is do the right thing and leave the consequences to God.
And we see that do the right thing. David would not harm the king because why? He was anointed of God. He was the king that God anointed. And David would not harm him. And he had opportunity to, as we'll see here in a little bit. Well, I've been talking. It's already 9:30. I better hurry up. David fled from Naioth and Ramah and came and said to Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father that he's seeking my life?" And Jonathan said to him, "Far from it. You shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. So why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so." So Jonathan believes that he has his father's trust, and he apparently he discusses lots of stuff with him. So he thinks that, well, my dad would tell me if that's really what's going to happen, and he hasn't said that. But David would show some of his wisdom. Yet David vowed again, saying, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your sight, and he has said, 'Do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved.' But truly, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, there is hardly a step between me and death." So Jonathan thinks that his dad's going to tell him, the king will tell him if he's going after David. David, though, doesn't believe it. He says, I'm within a step of death. And so Jonathan says, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." So they set up kind of a test to see where Saul was with this new moon festival that was an annual thing. And, well, not an annual thing, it's a new moon thing, monthly thing, I guess. And so David should have been there. He says, "I'm not going to be there, and you tell your dad that we talked, and you said it was okay that I not be there." And we'll see how he reacts. And if he's okay with it, then everything should be fine. But if he's not, then we'll know that he is still angry and still wants to kill me. So that we go through that and get down there and in verse 30 of chapter 20. And it says, "Then Saul's anger burned against Jonathan. He said to him, 'You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he must surely die.'" He's still trying to kill David because he wants Jonathan to be the next king. And he's telling Jonathan this. But Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him down, so Jonathan knew that he had decided to put David to death. And he got angry, he left. But and then Jonathan and David had worked out a thing there about how he could get the message to him, and let him know that his father was still angry, still after him, still wanted to kill him. So David left and went to Nob, to Ahimelech the king, or the priest rather, and he's got a group of men that are with him, a group of people. I think about, at this time, I believe it's about 400. So he went to Nob, went to the priest, and Ahimelech came to him trembling to meet him. He said, "Why are you alone and no one is with you?" I guess the men weren't with him yet at that time. And he said to the priest, so he's fabricating this little tale. He said, "The king has commissioned me with a matter and said to me, 'Let no one know anything about the matter in which I'm sending you, and with which I have commissioned you, and I have directed the young men to a certain place. Now therefore,'" so he did acknowledge he had people with him, but he was by himself when he was talking to the priest. He said, "What do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or anything that can be found, whatever you've got to feed my people here." So he answered David and said, "There's no ordinary bread, but there's a consecrated bread." Well, they changed that out every week. So they baked new bread, and they gave David the old bread. All right? And so then David said to Ahimelech down in verse 8, there's not a spear or a sword on hand, for I brought neither with me, because the king's matter was urgent. So he's given this story to the priest to give him an out, I believe. He said, the sword of Goliath, a Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, is wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you would take it for yourself, take it. So that's the only weapon we have was that sword. So took it and left, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. All right. So he got away there, but David departed and came to the cave there in chapter 22 to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and his father's household heard of it, they went down to him. Everyone who was in distress and everyone who was in debt and everyone who was discounted gathered to him, and he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. So at that point, that's where I got ahead of myself earlier. He's got 400 people there, and so he went from where he was to Mizpah of Moab. So went into Moab and talked to the king of Moab, and asked him to take care of his mom and dad. He didn't want Saul to get to his parents, so he took them into Moab and left them there. And then he went back to that stronghold where they were staying, that cave of Adullam, and they were there. But if you remember, we talked about the writers of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings being Samuel, Gad, and Nathan. Well, here is Gad. This is the first mention of him in this. The prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold, depart and go into the land of Judah. So he left there. And so Saul's still after him. Let's see, I'm going to just kind of summarize this. If we go through, let's finish this with one other thing here. There was an Edomite that was with David when he was there in Nob to get the bread from the priest and Goliath's sword. And so that Edomite who was standing by was there, and now in verse 9 of chapter 22, Dog, the Edomite who was standing by the servants of Saul, said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. He inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath. And the king sent someone to summon Ahimelech the priest, and the son of Ahitub, and all his father's household, and the priests who were in Nob, and all of them came to the king. So the king didn't go to them, as kings are apt not to. He told them, okay, you guys come here. And so he's mad because Ahimelech helped David. And I'll read just a bit here in verse 13, verse 13 of 22. Saul then said, why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me, and that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he could rise up against me by lying in ambush, as it is this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who among all your servants is as faithful as David, even the king's son-in-law, who is captain over your guard and is honored in your house? As far as he knew, everything was great. And he talks about David there. Did I just begin to inquire of God for him today? Had he talked to the Lord about for David? Did he just start that? He said, no. I've been doing this all along. I've done that many times. He said, so far be it from me. Do not let the king impute anything to his servant or to any of the household of my father, for your servant knows nothing at all about this whole affair. But the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household. And the king said to the guards who were attending him, turn around and put the priest of the Lord to death. What did the guards do? They said, no, we can't do that. And these are the people that, some of these people had to be individuals that David led in battle. All right? They knew David. And they said, where is it there? But the servants of the Lord are not willing to put forth their hands to attack the priests of the Lord. So they refused. But then here's this Doeg again. And the king said to Doeg, this Edomite, he said, will you turn around and attack the priests? And Doeg the Edomite turned around and attacked the priests and killed that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. And then he went to Nob and struck the city of the priests with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and infants, oxen, donkeys, and sheep he struck with the edge of the sword. So he mass murder on these people that had done nothing wrong other than, in the king's eyes, had turned against him because they gave David assistance. So, one son of Ahimelech, he escaped. A man by the name of Abiathar escaped and fled after David. So he told him about what Saul had done. And David laments it. He said, I knew that on that day when Doeg the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul, and I have brought about the death of every person in your father's household. Stay with me, don't be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life, and you're safe with me. So he was, I guess, concerned this might happen, and it did. All right, we'll continue there, not next Sunday, but the following Sunday. Next Sunday, Brother Buck is going to be here in my stead. Penny and I will be in Arizona. I was starting to say Alaska, not Alaska, Arizona. And we'll see you. So next week, Buck is not going to continue this. He's got to... Oh, you are? Okay. All right. So he is going to take it up. There we go. Plans change. Thank you very much.